Hello, everybody. Hi, Nadia. Hi, Melissa.
Hello.
Welcome.
Hello, thanks so much for having me.
Thank you
Thank you
so much
so
for
much
coming
for
here. I'm really,
coming.
really excited for this episode. This is to me like I'm anticipating it's going to be my favorite episode forever because Melissa was the doula for the birth of my two babies, Nadia and Lucy. And let me introduce you first. Okay, so Melissa is Melissa Dean. She's a midwife now. She wasn't a midwife when she helped me with my birth, but Melissa Dean is now a midwife and the founder of Casa Natal Birth and Wellness Center in Los Gatos, California. As a functional and integrative medicine practitioner, Melissa combines her expertise in women's health with her midwife practice. She provides care with an emphasis on holistic health modalities to bring wellness to women in every stage of their health, including childbirth, transition to motherhood, and beyond. Melissa's expertise has been featured in leading publications such as The Bump, Today's Parent, and The Checkup. And like I said, I'm so excited to have you here. This is kind of surreal because Melissa brought Nadia into this world. So
Well,
thank you
you
for
did.
being here.
I was there just to help support you. You did all the work.
I did.
And you worked.
It was, yeah, at the last or two episodes ago, we talked about our birth story. And yeah, Nadia especially was a lot of work.
Sorry.
Yep.
But I feel like every time she tells the birth story, which I have heard it before two podcasts ago, Melissa, you're like a big part of the whole thing. So it's very, very cool to meet you today. I have a few questions that I had thought of, just like having you as our guest. So I just wanted to know what inspired you to become a doula and then a midwife.
Well, again, I wanted to say thanks so much for this time to catch up with you guys and to visit with you and to share my insights. It's really just so wonderful to be here and talk to you. I was inspired to become a doula. I met somebody who was a doula after I had my fourth baby, and she told me about what she did. I didn't know anything about doulas. I didn't even know they existed when I had kids. And then I met her and she told me about what she did. And I was like, that's the coolest job in the entire world. I want to do that. And she basically told me about some trainings that I could take, and that was it. I went on to become a doula, and worked as a doula for 12 years until I decided I couldn't go to the hospital anymore. And then I became a midwife.
Oh, so you became a midwife so you can have your own place so that you could have a birthing center.
Well, I did it so that I could be in charge of my client's experience, because there were times that I would, I met you, you already had a care provider, you were well established into your pregnancy. And, so many times you have your OB that dictates, oh, we want to induce you, oh, this or oh, that, planting these little seeds of doubt. And some OBs are better than others, or you just get whoever's on call and you get shuffled between all the nurses and things. And I just saw so many things happen in a hospital that I did not want to be a part of anymore. It just it was terrible. And so I realized in order to have the best experience for my clients, I needed to be with them from the very beginning.
Interesting. So would you say it was like objectively terrible or from your own perspective terrible? Do you know what I mean? Like it was like, that's definitely what I wouldn't want to see in the world, me, Melissa, and what I think should be in a birthing experience, or just like, this is just straight terrible?
Both. For sure, things that happened that, for sure were the fault of the staff at the hospital, or, they wouldn't explain really what was happening, where I knew exactly what was happening and I didn't want to shock the family or, ruin their birth experience by telling them what had happened, unless they asked questions.
Right.
So yeah, both of those things.
Wow. Before I ask about how you became a doula, like what the training's like, I actually don't think I know the difference between a doula and a midwife.
Great question. So many people don't. So a doula is a non-medical person. They're there to provide educational support, emotional support, physical support through labor for the, the family while laboring. So I support, the mom and the dad, because the dads end up looking like rock stars because they got to, move in and do all the things, but at the same time they could take a break and go to the bathroom or eat a sandwich or take a rest if need
Right.
be. But yeah, so they're non-medical people. We accompany families to the hospital, usually, sometimes home births, sometimes birth center births, but most commonly to the hospital. Doulas typically are very well educated about the processes at the hospital and can help explain to you what the nurse is saying. Like the nurse will say something to you in kind of medical speak, and we translate to make it very clear and understandable. Or if they're offering you something that maybe you didn't really want and they use a certain word that makes it a little bit more confusing, we can very clearly help explain what's going on.
Oh,
And then, rub your back for 17 hours and all the things.
You did guided imagery with me. I remember distinctly that you brought me to a warm place and I wanted to be in the mountains on snow. So I said, can we do a different image? And then amongst all the other things that you did, you also made you made breakfast for Eric. You made breakfast, so he could be with me. And then you're like, I'll help support you guys by making some food for you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I have made so many eggs for people over the years. It's important because, sometimes the dads want a break and they want to be able to walk out of the room and go make their own food and be able to have just some quiet time. And other times they don't want to leave. So then I go and just facilitate to make sure that it's caring for the family. Really. That's what a doula does. Caring for the family through the birth experience. Midwives are medical people. So I do everything a doctor does except surgery. So I do all the prenatal care. I do all the tests, ultrasounds, all those kinds of things, see them for all their visits, and then deliver the baby, and then do all their postpartum care afterwards.
Okay. And then do midwives only work in birthing centers, or do they, how does that work?
So there's a couple different kinds of midwives. There are licensed midwives. I'm a licensed midwife. I became a licensed midwife on purpose because I never wanted to work in a hospital. Licensed midwives typically don't work in hospitals. They're certified professional midwives who usually have our certification. You can move around the country and practice in most states. Some states have licensure, some states don't. California has licensure, so I had to be licensed. And then there are nurse midwives, and nurse midwives train in a hospital. They're nurses, and then they get a master's in midwifery and practice midwifery in a hospital setting most of the time. So they train under doctors and do shift work just like OBs, and don't really have very much experience outside the hospital. So some of them will go out on their own and seek out additional training to have out of hospital experience, and others don't. They practice a little bit more like OBs, but spend a little bit more time with you.
Okay. Wow. I really didn't know the difference, I think. I knew that they both, helped during the process, but there is a pretty big difference between the two. So what is the training like to become a doula specifically? I know you had to get a license to become a midwife, but for a doula, what kind of training do you need to go through?
So there's no actual requirement to be trained as a doula. You can just accompany another doula. You can read a book. You can just start, offering to support women for free, anything that you want. However, there are quite a few certifying bodies out there now, DONA and Kappa, and I mean, everybody and their sister has a new doula training these days, it seems like. So I'm not really, there's a lot of them.
Okay.
And they give you the basic fundamentals of labor support. There's required reading that you have to do to help understand the stages of labor, things like that. But most of your training comes from just attending births and sitting with women in labor for hours, getting a feel for where they are in labor. Because, usually once you've had enough experience, you can kind of I can look at somebody and say, oh, she's probably, 3 centimeters or 7 or whatever, just kind of by their demeanor.
Right. I see. Yeah, that's very cool. And then to become a midwife, how long does it take to get your license, if necessary, if you need your license?
So for certified professional midwife, there are quite a few schools around the country. In California, it's required that you go to an accredited school, and it's a 3 to 5 year educational process where you work as an apprentice midwife under another midwife.
Okay.
So you
I
attend
see.
prenatal appointments with her for the whole time you're in school. You attend births. You work as her assistant until eventually you become skilled enough that you kind of
Mm-hmm.
practice as the midwife with her there supervising you until you've had enough experience to take the
Wow.
exam and become a
Mm.
midwife yourself.
Just one midwife, or
You can have as many preceptors as you're able to.
Mm-hmm.
It's harder to find preceptors. Not all midwives like being teachers. Or typically, there's just not as many licensed midwives out there.
Yeah.
And so finding a preceptor is sometimes difficult.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to have a new student now. So if you're listening to this podcast and you want to be a midwife, call me.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I mean, I wish you were nearby, Nadia. Maybe you could. But so there's some time in the classroom and there's some time apprenticing, or is it all like on the job training?
For sure, there's classroom type work. Again, it depends on the school. Some schools have like online classes where you have to sit in class and attend lectures. My school was more kind of on your own. They sent you the study modules, and we had a study group of other students where we would get together and do the study modules together. But using textbooks, filling out completing the coursework, like something like 1,100 hours of coursework. And then in addition to that, apprenticing.
Wow.
And then you take a test, really cool and that's how you get your license?
Yes, you take a state licensing exam. It was like 8 hours. Back in the day, I had to go to Sacramento and sit for the exam. You could like bring a pencil, and that was like it, nothing else. Water. Nowadays, you do them online. You have a proctor, and they do them online, and you find out right away. We had to wait 3 weeks to get the results. Did I pass? Did I not pass?
Yeah. Wow.
Can I ask a quick question, Nadia? Can I interrupt for a second?
Yeah.
It's called a midwife, and then you were saying like you would you would be an apprentice for her. Are there male midwives?
There are. Yes, there for sure are. Not very many. I know for sure there's a couple on the East Coast. I know there was one at a conference I met a female midwife, and a couple of her sons had gone on to become midwives as well. There were just male midwives.
That's very cool.
But I think there's definitely more now, but I don't know where they all are. Not in my area.
Oh, wow. So that few that you wouldn't know any in
no.
The wow.
Usually their mom has been a midwife or something, you know what I mean? They grew up.
They grew up around it.
Yes. Yes. And generally their moms are kind of like famous midwives.
So
yeah.
The only option was to follow the footsteps.
Yeah, and they generally I know the couple of guys that I've heard of, their moms own new birthing centers. So it's like, you go to work for your mom.
Passing it along. Yeah. Yeah. Very cool. I wanted to know what the hardest part about being a doula and or a midwife is for you specifically.
The hardest part is being on call and the long hours. I own a practice now, so I have a practice of midwives. We have a group practice, so we share call, which is glorious. But for years and years and years, 17 years, 18 years, I practiced on my own. And so,
right.
You don't get to go to your kid's birthday party. You miss Christmas. One year I missed Christmas Eve and Christmas Day because 2 different people were having babies. I've missed
Oh
every
my
single
goodness.
holiday, every single one of my kids' birthdays. I have to, if I want to go out of town, I have to plan it 10 months in advance. So I have the tickets bought. So when somebody calls and says, I'm pregnant, I'm like, oh, darn, I'm going to Hawaii. I can't be your midwife.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Wow.
But yeah, and the long hours. It's just long, long hours. Doula work is more so, more physical because you are physically hands-on supporting the woman. As the midwife, we do some of that, but it's not the hands-on that I did as a doula. My body just can't take it anymore. It's very physical work.
Yeah.
Is there any pain medication in the type of deliveries that you do? Melissa, are most people trying to do it without pain medication?
Everybody is trying to do it without. Yes, we don't offer any at the birthing center. So if at some point during their labor they decide they change their mind and they like, look, I'm exhausted. I need to sleep. I really want an epidural. Great. We'll put you in the car and we'll go to the hospital and you can have an epidural. And that happens sometimes, not nearly as often as you think it might, but it does happen sometimes. Usually it's just a super long labor, very much like yours, where just labor and labor and labor, and the baby just doesn't come and you're just exhausted. And it's a useful tool. The epidural can be a useful tool at helping the mom to relax before the baby comes.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I remember for Nadia, I felt a whole other person. I was like, oh, this is so much easier. I can rest now. Like, whew. After like pushing already to get an epidural, I think some people don't realize that you can do that. Yeah. And then it's also, if I think about it, kind of weird that I decided still the next kid around that I was going to try to do it without the epidural again. Like even knowing how much more comfortable I was after the epidural, I still went for the natural birth for the second one.
Because it's a beautiful experience, and you're choosing to not give your child narcotics during their birth. I mean, it's and it's your body was made to do it. So most of the time it works fine. Every now and then it takes a little longer.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
It was your little gymnast body.
Yeah. I just don't want to get out. Okay. Can you share any moments of your work that you find as particularly rewarding? What has been the most rewarding experience having the job that you have?
Honestly, it's the clients. It's exactly your mom and dad. It's getting to know the super amazing people that I've met over my career and delivering, their first, second, third, fourth baby and spending time with them and really just integrating into their family and getting to know them so well and just loving them so much and helping them to welcome their children into the world. It's such a beautiful bonding experience for the couple. And yeah, I'm just super blessed to be invited to participate in that. That is the best part.
Yeah, that's very cool. And you get to be a part of so many different, experiences like that. Just you can't even get enough of it. That's very cool.
The big difference between midwives and doctors are midwives spend time building a relationship with you. That's the crux of midwifery care, is getting to know our clients so well, so that when it comes time for you to have your baby, I know what makes you feel nervous. I know what makes you feel excited. I know all the thoughts and dreams that you have for your birth. And we've talked it all through for hours and hours and hours leading up to your birth experience. And so it's like having, a friend or, somebody that you really trust, they're helping you. And that's the most magical part of the job.
Yeah. So some of your questions in like leading up to the childbirth are probably different than what the questions are asked in a regular OB-GYN appointment,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Like, I mean, if you're finding out like what makes me tick, it's not like, you know, I don't know, the standard questions that are asked when you go to a doctor's office.
Well, I don't know.
Right.
Were you even asked any questions? Usually it's like, so you got any questions?
I was trying to think what questions I was asked. It was a long time ago, but I don't actually remember anymore.
No, you get about like, I don't know, 7 minutes in the doctor's office. That's it. Like literally,
Right.
because the nurse does your blood pressure and does all that stuff before you're in there. And they literally like, so any questions? How you doing? Okay, well, let's listen to your baby. Boom. And they don't even know where your baby is in your belly, which, is crazy to me. I know exactly how to feel where your baby is, where the head is, where the back is, where the legs
Mm.
are, all the things. And can teach you how to find your baby in your belly. And yeah, it's completely different care, completely different care.
Yeah. Wow. Just that personal experience with someone that's like helping bring your child into the world is, I feel like that's a very big thing. And it helps to build that trust. We talked about trust in like the healthcare setting, didn't we, in our last episode? Yeah, very important.
Yeah, and you don't
Um,
necessarily have the opportunity to build trust with medical providers. I mean,
right.
because you don't really spend that much time with them. You get a few minutes only. I mean, I know my son was sick for a time, and we spent quite a bit of time with his doctor and really built up a relationship with her. But that was
Mm-hmm.
completely different. It's not like the
Right.
typical healthcare.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel lucky to be a physical therapist because I do get to spend a lot of time with the
Yeah.
people that I'm serving. It's a lot,
Mm.
we get, and my appointments are an hour long. So I really
Yeah.
get a lot of time.
Exactly. Yeah. Same
Yeah.
with mine. Mine are an hour long too. So you really get time. You get to know people, and then you get to rejoice in their healing and their recovery. Same with, I get to be a part of this magical experience that they, have
Mm-hmm.
planned. So
Yeah. Do
similar.
you uh take care of like the mom and the baby like postpartum too, or is it just before?
Yeah. So in California, my license covers care for the mom and care for the baby for the first 6 weeks. So the
Okay.
mom will either, if she's at our birthing center, she'll have her baby, and they're generally there for 3 or 4 hours
Mm-hmm.
during the recovery process. And as soon as mom and baby are stable, we send them home so that they can rest and recover at home. And then we go to their
Right.
house the next day, and then go to their house again on
Okay.
day 3, and then see them again at 1 week, and again at 2 weeks if they need it, and then 6 weeks. If they have a home birth,
Yeah.
then we are at their house. We deliver the baby. We're there for a few hours again, making sure that mom and baby are stable. Everybody's,
Mm-hmm.
transitioning well. And then we go home and then come back to their house the next day. And again, day 3 and things like that.
Wow.
Wow.
That's very
Insurance,
nice.
the I word. Does insurance pay for all of this?
I mean, for sure I take insurance. Yes. It's insurance. So I'm out of network. And so, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
we do work with your insurance to try to get as much of your birth covered as possible. There are quite a few people who basically pay their deductible and co-insurance, and then the birth is covered mostly by their insurance. But since, well, I would say, after Obamacare, all the deductibles went from like $200, $500 to $1,000 and $5,000 or $10,000.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a $5,000 deductible. you know, my fee, that's more than half my fee. So, you're going to pay
Yeah.
some. And then co-insurance on top of that, if you have an 80% co-insurance or 70%, depending on whatever your insurance that you chose. And then after COVID, the insurance companies spent so much money on COVID that they started
Mm-hmm.
cutting reimbursement for OB, because OB is one of the
Mm.
biggest insurance billable insurance claims in the country. And so, yeah, I think all of us who do deliveries are seeing that our insurance reimbursement is dropping like a rock. So, yeah, it's not super billable. I mean, do you take insurance?
I don't. And the reason I don't is because I want a full hour, and insurance wouldn't be able to compensate enough for a full hour appointment.
Exactly. Yep. So we don't get paid for any, like, the time that we put in. I'll bill the billable codes and all the things that we do and try to get as much of your birth paid for. But if, if you go and network with an insurance and you're only able to take the $37 that they send you for the 15 minutes that you're supposed to spend. So yeah, I do take insurance, but I'm out of network, and I just have a flat fee that they pay, and then we bill their insurance to try to get as much of that covered as possible.
Yeah. Wow.
At least you do that. I don't actually even interact very much with insurance at all. I just provide a detailed, like a super bill, detailed receipt, and people submit it themselves. But it's not a whole birth, so it's
Right. Yeah.
different number.
Yeah.
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 A lot easier in the same kind of codes most of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so going away from insurance, what are the most common things that happen during childbirth that people wouldn't, normally see on TV shows, or, I mean, maybe in basic conversation, but mostly in TV shows?
Yeah, Nadia and I had this conversation. I was like, what do you know about childbirth? And she's recalling her episodes of Grey's Anatomy or whatever. And she's like trying to like recall what she knows. And she did know some stuff. But yeah, this is related to that question.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, if you're watching it on TV, it's made to be dramatic. It's got to keep you engaged. Because honestly,
Right.
most birth is super boring, because it's just take hours and hours and hours of just the mom kind of pacing around and doing her thing. It's really not very exciting until the baby comes out. So, yeah, mostly just that it does take quite a while, but a lot of times you don't really realize that if you're up and moving around, most people think, oh, I'm going to have a contraction. We're going to get in the car. We're going to go to the hospital, and then the baby comes out. It's just going to be just like that. And it doesn't happen like that at all. Well, once in a while it does. Maybe your second baby, but not most babies. But yeah, typically it's much, 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 much longer than you ever imagine. And even one of my boys, it was funny because his wife was pregnant, and he was like, well, Mom, we're just going to call you. And I was like, no, you're going to call your doula, and she's going to come over and she's going to support you for a few hours, and then I will see you. He just thought, oh yeah, she has a few contractions and then the baby comes out. It's not really that long. But yes, birth typically takes quite a while, and your body absolutely 100% knows what to do. If like it's made to be, back in the Middle Ages, where you didn't have any attendants, or you were out in the field or wherever, your body knows exactly what to do and how to maneuver to keep yourself as comfortable as possible. And honestly, if you just leave the woman alone, don't interrupt her, and don't try to give her an IV and make her lay on her back and hook her up to a machine and all those things, her baby will come out just fine most of the time.
Nadia had this impression, like you have on TV, it's like your water breaks, and then you're like, oh, I got to go to the hospital.
Yeah.
But that's not really how it happens.
No, usually the water breaks earlier on, like around 10% of the time. Most of the time, the water breaks right before the baby comes out.
Okay. So all the TV shows are lying.
Well,
I mean, I guess
they're,
as a mom,
they're making it exciting, so you stay tuned.
Yeah.
Every time I watch a show like Grey's Anatomy, and are like, oh yeah, she's dying, and I'm like, good gravy, what did they do to her? She's dying in childbirth. I'm like, that's not real.
Yeah. A lot of what I know is from TV, but I do want to, experience what I see on TV in real life. So it's helpful to know what is being, over exaggerated and what's not.
Yeah.
Are there any common myths about pregnancy and birthing that, you'd want to dispel or, debunk?
Common myths. Like the water breaking, that one we talked about, how, oh yeah, the water breaks, and then you're huffing and puffing and get her in a taxi, get her to, you think like, what was that one with Bruce Willis,
Right.
where he was the voice of the baby? Anyway,
Oh,
like that was pretty funny, that one. But yeah, that doesn't usually happen. And you usually have so much more time. Everybody says, "Oh, I live half an hour away. Do you think I'll get there in time?" I said, "Oh, you could probably drive to Santa Barbara and back and still be pregnant before you have your baby because it usually takes a while."
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's really the
Yeah.
biggie. Any other myths that you were thinking about, like that I'm not thinking of?
Well, I was just on the top of my head, I was thinking, or maybe this is even just my own fear. Can, like, when you're pregnant or you're going through the contractions and you need to go to the bathroom, like,
Mm.
how does, like, I guess
How does
I've
what
it all
seen it in
work?
happened?
TV shows too. Like, can the baby be like born like while you're on the toilet, or is it like,
Well, it
is this
can.
like something
So
if it's
yeah, when you're in labor, you still have all your normal bodily functions. Everything works
right,
exactly the same. You can still,
right,
walk and talk and sit on the
mm-hmm,
toilet and do all the things. But
right,
as the baby is descending down through the birth canal, the
mm-hmm,
vagina and the rectum are right next to each other. So as the head is coming down here, it presses on the colon and makes you have that urge makes you feel like you need to have a bowel movement. So that's what sends a lot of
yeah,
women to go sit on the toilet, like, oh, I need to use the bathroom, when really it's the baby's head pushing down. And we
oh my
usually say,
goodness,
they'll say, oh, I need to go to the bathroom. I'm like, it's just the baby's head. It's just the baby's
yeah.
head. And sure enough, it is the baby's head. And then we get her off the toilet. Or I
Yeah.
say,
But some
just the other day we had a birth and I said, would you like to have your baby on the toilet? And she was like, no. I said, then you need to get off of the toilet right now. Come over here. She goes, can I get back in the pool? I said, yes, get back in the pool. Let's have a baby in the pool. So into the pool she got.
That's funny.
But
Wow.
people also not on the toilet will have a bowel movement while they're giving birth as well, right?
Yes. So as you're pushing, especially if it's like your first birth, I don't know if you recall, but your first birth, you have all those hormones, estrogen and stuff that make you kind of have like looser stool in the beginning. Kind of like when you have a super heavy period, you have kind of looser stool. Similar to
Mhm.
being in labor, you will usually have several bowel movements in the early part of labor. And so then you don't necessarily have anything left. Um,
I
but when you
see.
are having a second or third baby, it just all the process is so much faster that you don't have time necessarily to do the elimination.
Mm.
And as the head is descending, anything that's in front of the head just gets pushed out. So right alongside the colon, everything gets pushed out. It's usually it's a positive sign. We know the baby's coming.
Right.
She's pooping. Here comes
Yeah.
the baby right behind. We have a little net. We
um,
just fish everything out.
um, I know you mentioned a pool. Do you do a lot of births in like I don't know how it works. Like,
A
is
birth
it
tub? Yeah.
called a water birth?
Mm-hmm.
A water birth?
Yes.
I how does that this is like this is just another one of my questions. How does that work? It's the same process? Um,
Yes. So when you get into the warm water, it just, it's just the same feeling like when you get into a hot tub. Everything just relaxes. It feels so comforting to be in that warm water.
mhm,
Um, and it creates a little bit of buoyancy. So your belly doesn't feel quite as heavy. You feel like you can move around a little bit more.
mhm.
So quite a lot of our clients have their babies in the pool. You just are in the pool and you feel the urge to push your baby out, and then your baby comes out into the water and we just lift it right up out of the water. And it's
Mhm.
nice because it's a gentle experience for the baby because they're surrounded by fluid before they're born.
Right. Mhm.
Babies have
And
amniotic
then
fluid all around their bodies, in their lungs, in their stomach, everything. And as they're being born, the fluid gets pushed out of their stomach and their lungs, and they come into this warm water, and they don't have they're not stimulated to take a breath until the cool air hits their body. So they won't take a
okay.
breath underwater. We just lift them up out of the water, and then they feel the cool air, and then they start to breathe.
Wow, that's very cool.
How do you keep the water warm the whole time for all the hours?
They don't get in the pool for the whole time because we use it
You're
as the
not just
last
sitting
best
there.
thing. Yeah, so they're usually in the pool the last couple of hours. We can add a little bit of extra hot water. We have super hot water at the birth center, so we can add like 2 gallons of hot and it brings the temperature up quite nicely. Or just let a little water out and add a little bit more in. But typically they're not in the pool for that long. We want you moving around and changing positions and doing all kinds of other things and not just kind of stuck in one spot. Plus, if you get in the pool too early, it can slow your labor down. And you get kind of tired of being in the pool. You're just like hot and kind of over it. You're like, most people are like, get me out of here. I want to do something different. Make the baby come out.
Yeah.
I want it done.
Yeah, it's a good like last portion of it.
Yes.
Yeah. That's very
Tell
cool.
us a little bit more about your birthing center. Like, what does it look like? I've actually never been in a birthing center. Most people are familiar with what a hospital looks like, I think, from TV. But I don't know that everybody is familiar with what a birthing center might look like. And yours might be really unique and different from other birthing centers. So if you could just give us an idea of like the standard and then yours at Casa Natal.
Sure. Well, you'll need to come visit me. That's what you need to do.
I want to.
And we have really great photos on our website too. But my birthing center is similar to others in that it feels very homey. It feels like a home. But it's really beautiful. I mean, I put a lot of attention into the details of what the rooms look like and everything. And a lot of people say, oh, it feels like a really nice hotel with a beautiful big tub in the hotel room. So the birth suite has, it's a big room with a bed, just a regular bed. And then a pool next to, nearby the bed. And then you have your own bathroom as well with a shower and all that in the bathroom. So you can be in the shower for a time if you want to. There's also space for you to move around and walk around in your room. And because, we want you moving because that's what helps the baby come out. Really beautiful colors and just really serene feeling. It feels very spa-like.
Sounds spa-like.
Yeah.
Are there multiple people giving birth at the same time?
Not so often. Once in a while, we have 2 rooms, so every now and then we'll have 2 births at the same time, but it's not that common. Usually it's one at a time. Okay. It's very exciting when we have 2 births at the same time, though.
This is crazy. I kind of want to have another baby again. I experienced it at a birthing center. I'm just kidding. I'm not having another baby, but it sounds like if I was making a choice now, that's where I'd want to be.
Yeah, for sure. Just based on, knowing you and what your birth was like. Yes. But yeah, I said the same thing when I became a doula and I learned about this whole amazing experience. I was like, oh, we need to have another baby so I can do it right. And I was like, well, I don't really want to raise any more kids. Maybe I'll have a baby and give it away. I don't know. I could be a surrogate or something. But no, didn't happen.
Well, now you get to experience it through a lot of other women.
Yes. And I'm super blessed that my daughter-in-laws have all invited me to be at their births and have me as part of their birth experience. So my kids are doing it right. So I'm excited about that.
That's cool.
Is that when my kids need physical therapy, they don't see me. I send them to my colleagues because they wouldn't listen to me. But, that type of care is so intimate, so personal, so I can't imagine. I'm thinking about my mother-in-law. I can't imagine my mother-in-law being part of that birth. I mean, it's not that I don't love my mother-in-law and we are close, but in fact, for when I was in labor, when I was laboring at home with my second child, with Lucy, they were taking care of Nadia and they tried to come over and I was like, oh, no, we don't need mother-in-law here. Or father-in-law. They both tried to come over. it, have you helped a lot of friends and family? And is it strange to do that?
You know, I mean, I haven't helped any of my own personal friends just because my friends are all my age, you know. But quite a few of my friends' kids, I have been their midwife. Or you know, my kids' friends that
Mm-hmm.
they grew up around us. Quite a few of them, and yeah, it's just this magical experience. It's so amazing and
Yeah.
wonderful.
And they're open to having somebody like, you know, them in one way, and now you're switching into like a different role in their life. And I guess the fact that you already know them and they trust you is helpful.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think that's what it is. You know, they trust me, and um, yeah, I'm super blessed. My daughter-in-law, one of my daughter-in-laws lives in a different state, and I don't have a license there, so she invited me to be part of her births, but she had another midwife there, um, who had a license and was, responsible. I just got to be the grandma
Yeah.
and make
That's
sure
very
that the midwife
cool.
was doing everything right.
Yeah.
That's intimidating. The grandma is also a midwife watching over, making sure that they're doing it
Yeah,
all
she
right.
did. She did, say that ahead of time. Like my mother-in-law is a midwife, and I was there when she interviewed her midwife, and yeah, but she was great.
Is there an interview? Do you go through an interview process? Is it like is it standard or is it, I mean, I feel like, I mean, it probably in their position I'd do the same, but is it like an interview that always happens or you just get on a phone call if the mom requests it?
I think it's different for everybody.
Hmm.
Obviously, when I was in solo practice, everybody would interview me.
Right.
Because you're kind of trying to find the right midwife because there's different personalities
Right.
of midwife. Um, you know, and so there's always the right midwife for the right family. You might be looking for
Hmm.
somebody who, is soft spoken or somebody who takes charge or, whatever their experience levels are, any of those kinds of things, or just somebody you feel like you click with. Oh, she's so fun. Oh, I really enjoyed spending time with her. I can imagine spending time with her at
Hmm.
my birth, those kinds of things.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Now I have an office manager and she answers all of their questions. And so every now and
Hmm.
then people want to talk to me, but most of the time she answers all their questions. She gives them a tour of the birthing center and
Hmm.
that's it.
Yeah. It's very cool.
I wanted to end with a story that I don't know if you know, Melissa. I might have told you this along the way. Today, I went to a funeral for my uncle. My dad's last living sibling passed away recently. And the grandchildren had a particular name for him, like a particular nickname. You know, everybody has different names for their grandparents. And I was listening to the grandchildren speak about their grandpa, realizing that one day my kids are going to be doing that too for my dad. And my dad's nickname that he chose for himself is
Mhm.
Papa Doula. They call my dad Papa Doula.
That's cute though.
I know. He's a silly guy, and he adopted the name because I think he thought that what I was doing was both cool and silly. He's like, "Why are you going to have a doula? Who is this person? You have all these nurses at the hospital. Like, why are you paying extra going out to bring somebody else in?" I think he thought it was really cool and also silly like him. So he decided that he was going to adopt the name Papa Doula, and now forever, all of his grandchildren call him Papa Doula.
Oh, I
Yeah.
love that. I love
My
that. That's
cousins
so fun.
too.
But
Yeah.
I'm sure he has to be like nurturing and comforting as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he is.
I think it's
You
really
have to
silly
earn the
too.
name.
Yeah. Yeah. If it didn't fit, we wouldn't be using the name, I feel. But yeah, so I grew up calling him Papa Doula, not actually, I mean, really until today, knowing what a doula really was. So I think it's very cool.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming
I
today,
know, but we were
Melissa.
gonna.
You have another question?
No, sorry, I didn't know if my microphone had gone away. I was just gonna say we were gonna end on a question of what are the advantage of choosing a birthing center, but I feel like this whole conversation has kind of like convinced me that that's probably the only way to go.
I
I
think
think so.
really the big
I mean,
difference is that you just, again, the midwifery model of care is builds relationship, and it's also on the premise of informed consent. So I think the medical model thinks that they give informed consent, but they don't necessarily really give you all of the information and then allow you in an unbiased way to make your decision. They give you information hoping to um, affect your decision so that you choose what they want you to do, and then kind of are surprised if you don't choose what they want you to do. And so they try to mitigate that by allowing less options, maybe. I've
Mhm.
definitely spent lots of time in a hospital, so I know and I've seen this. But in our practice, we really want you to have all the information and we really want you to make the decision that works for you. I don't
Right.
care what your decision is. I'm here to support you with that. As long as you are safe, you can do whatever you want.
Mhm.
So my clients really respect that they do have absolute control over their decision making.
Mhm.
And it's just, like I said, really rare in medical practice. You also know who's going to be at your birth. When you go to a hospital, there's all the nurses there, but you don't know who any of them are. Um,
Right.
they're all kind and wonderful, but you don't really know them. Um, and at the birthing center, everybody that's going to be at your birth, and you've spent time with
Yeah.
them, and feel excited to see them at your birth.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that is the big difference.
Melissa, you
I
should
can
have a
only
party,
imagine.
an annual party, inviting all the families that you've helped birth, like all the people that you've helped come into this world. I think that'd be super cool.
Honestly, I've done it a few times. You came to one
Did
or
I?
two of them. um, but yeah, we had one last November for all of our clients who've had their babies at the birthing center, and it's lovely and wonderful. But as the midwife, it's like being the bride at your reception.
Yeah.
It's very much like that. You hope you remember everybody's name, and
Right.
you make sure you want to greet everybody, and it's a lot, and then it's a lot of work, and
Yeah.
a little overwhelming. So yes, my office manager has sworn that we're going to do it every single year. So I'll just tell you, we're doing ours next year. But she said we're doing it every single year. And I said, as long as she plans it, I will make sure I'm there.
It sounds like actually we should all be throwing a party for you, but we need to
Yeah.
get together and make that happen.
Well, that's very sweet of you. Maybe when I retire.
I found out recently that a girl in college, a woman in college, is a doula while she's in like still studying.
Yeah.
Would you recommend that to somebody as a good experience?
Sure. If you really love birth, I've had quite a few gals that are young and in college age start out. I would say, or they come to me and they want to be a midwife, and I said, well, why don't you work as a doula for a period of time, because it
Mhm.
costs significantly less to do the training for a
Mhm.
doula, way less output of time and money. So try working as a doula and see if you just like being on call, because that is the hardest part. Can
Right.
you drop everything at the drop of a hat and run out the door to give all of
Right.
your attention to someone else?
Yeah.
You can't think about anything else that's going on. You just have to give everything to that person. Um, my husband had a heart attack a few years ago, and I delivered 3 babies that weekend.
Oh my
Oh,
In
goodness.
wow.
between running here and there, back to the hospital, go to a birth, back to the hospital, go to a birth. Yeah.
Oh my
That
gosh.
really
Wow.
does illustrate the dedication.
Yeah, she was
Yeah.
the
My son
dedication.
was in the hospital during COVID, and I, yeah, couldn't be there for everything. So
Wow.
it's a lot. to be a midwife. So I usually say, try it as a doula for a little while and see how you like it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's also a
How
lot
do
of
you-
responsibility. You have to be willing to put your big girl pants on and say, nope, I believe that everything's safe and I'm willing to be responsible and everything's going to be fine. You have to really, really, really trust birth. That's what it is. You have to trust the birth process. And I've had quite a few students. I've mentored quite a few students, and over the years, quite a few of them got their licenses and then never practiced because they couldn't. It was so overwhelming to be responsible, the only one in the room who's responsible for both a mother and the baby.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
yeah, it's not for everybody.
It does not sound like it's for everybody.
But I'm very glad that you have chosen, this role, this path in your life. I mean, without it, I would still be here, but maybe a little
Yes.
bit different.
Your mom just would have had a different experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, I, of course, I'm so happy that you decided to go in this direction.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. It was absolutely 100% my pleasure to care for you during your labors.
Well, thank
It
you
was
so
magic.
much. Thank you so much for that. And thank you for coming to this
Yes,
podcast
thank you
today.
so much.
Yeah, this was really, really so special. And like I anticipated in the beginning, I think this is forever going to be my favorite podcast episode.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate the invitation. It was really lovely to catch up with you and to spend time with you, Nadia. It was just, it was
It's very
super
nice
fun.
to talk to you. Yeah, thank you so much
And
for coming
come visit
today.
me.
I also really want to.
Yes, come when you're back in town. Come stop by send me
Yeah.
a message and come by the birth center. I'd love to show you around.
Okay, perfect.